Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Real Raw Conversations. I'm here with my friend Darrell Grisby today, and we're just going to be getting to know who Darrell is, asking him some questions about what it was like growing up African American, and ultimately what we want to see as a result of this episode of Real Raw Conversations is some understanding on all sides, and we also want to we want to see ultimately some racial reconciliation. We're doing these line of videos because there's a real problem in our country right now, um, racially. And we need to fix that. We need to talk about race. We need to seek first to understand and then be understood. And so that is what we as a ministry are trying to do. And I'm just so thankful that you're joining us today, Darrell. And we're gonna start off and we're just gonna get to know you a little bit. Can you just tell us a little bit about who you are and where you grew up and what that was like?
Well, thank you, Chad, for inviting me to be a part of this. I was totally taken by surprise, but a great surprise considering at this point in time in my life right now. I was born and raised 1956, born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Uh, Left home at 17 due to the call of the military. I grew up in a totally segregated environment.
Hmm.
They tried integration in our high school in 1970. It didn't work. My uncle had been in the Air Force. It seemed like a great life. I signed up at 17, 13 days after I graduated from high school.
Wow.
I was in basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. And immediately I went from a segregated environment to a totally integrated melting pot of people from different walks, different backgrounds, different stories. And I realized I remember even thinking, God, you're not in Kansas anymore.
Mm.
And so it was a wonderful experience because I got to meet, interact, work, and get to know folks from all different backgrounds. And I found out one key thing that has directed me my whole life. I am, no one is any better, any worse than I am.
Amen.
I'm equal to everyone on this planet. And
That's
that
right.
served me well. Uh, I served for 25 years.
Thank you for your
I
service.
Thank you. I served in wartime during Desert Storm. I got to live in Europe, Asia. It was a wonderful experience getting to live in other cultures and other countries. And it made me appreciate America, but it also made me appreciate other things about other countries. So I had that compare and contrast going on. 1999, I retired from the Air Force and had moved to Charleston, South Carolina in 1992.
Mm.
And I worked in my church for a little bit after that. I'm a minister of the gospel, church elder,
Amen.
and started working with different groups as far as racial reconciliation is concerned. One Charleston is a group that I connected with a few years ago. They do wonderful work there in the community. Um, Started working for the Department of State, another government agent. Their compensation division there in Charleston. Worked with them for 17 years, retired again.
Wow.
And I moved here to Pineville, North Carolina, a suburb town of Charlotte. And my daughter, son-in-law, two grandchildren live here. And my wife and I, we've been married, Diane. We've been married for 41 years.
Wow.
Uh, she's up in Alexandria visiting my youngest daughter, Dominique, and she's going to be back tomorrow. She would have been here this morning. And so we are both ministers of the gospel. We both have worked uh, in the ministry because we all have a title of ministers of reconciliation.
Right.
And so we are working in that capacity right now. I began to work with the Pineville Police Department here recently and started doing some community outreach efforts with them. So we started a marriage ministry also,
Wow.
working with couples and premarital couples, counseling, providing that, working in our church here, doing that also. I just recently as of 3 weeks ago, completed my PhD in biblical counseling.
Wow.
And so now I really look towards the work that's truly getting ready to start.
Wow, that is amazing, Darrell.
Yes.
So, man, first of all, like I said, thank you so much for your service to our country.
Hmm.
And also thank you for your service in ministry. It sounds like you've been faithfully in ministry for a long time
Yes.
and been married for a long time and I just want to tell you, man, you are goals for me. I want to I want to be able to say all those things someday that I loved my country and I loved my wife and I loved
Yes.
Jesus enough to be in ministry for a long time. And so,
Yes.
man, super proud to know you. And so, I just want to jump right into our questions. I wanted to know, first of all, what was it like growing up African American?
It was. We were sheltered, thankfully.
Hmm.
As my wife said, if we were poor, we didn't know it. We were raised by strong mother, grandmother, and the first original big mama was my great grandmother.
No.
She, her grandmother was a slave,
Wow.
and so she took care of us. We could do no wrong in her eyesight, and especially no one else's eyesight. But we lived in a very closed in society. We had a certain part of town to live in. We grew up attending totally black Baptist churches, uh, black high school, elementary school, junior high school, and we didn't really have much interaction with whites in our community at that time. Our grandparents, my mother, and everything, they were domestics that worked in the homes of high society, doctors, lawyers,
Wow.
uh, whites in the community there. And they had to catch buses or catch rides to these individuals' apartments, I mean homes. And but we were sheltered coming up. Like I said, I left at 17. I didn't really uh, get to interact or know someone other than my color. They tried integration in high school in 1970. It didn't work. It was a bad time for race relations there in Louisiana. We saw riots. We saw the city burning with
Wow.
Martin Luther King when he passed in 1968. Uh, the it was what was interesting. I wasn't bused to a white school. They bused in white students and white teachers to our school,
Wow.
and that was a difference. That really was a difference. And the white teachers, the white students, they were afraid. They were
Mhm.
definitely afraid of coming into an environment they weren't familiar with, just like if the roles were reversed.
Right.
I remember something very poignant, and it set the stage for being excellent in everything that I do. I did a project, what didn't have to turn it in, English project, turned it in to my young white English teacher at the time. A couple of days later, we were doing a study on Edgar Allan Poe, The Raven,
Hmm.
and I wrote something, turned it into her for critique because I fancied myself a writer at that time, ninth
Oh.
grade. And she shoved it back in my face a few days later and said, "You didn't write this." And I said,
Wow.
"Yes, I did. I did write this." She said, "No, you didn't write this."
Wow.
And so that let me know at a young age that I had to be better, twice as better,
Mm.
uh, just to be somewhat close to equal footing. And that kind of propelled me the rest of my career up until today.
Wow. Wow. Man, thank you for sharing that. So, Dr. Eric Mason, in his book Woke Church, says that most African Americans have had at least two life altering experiences that are burned into their memory: the moment they realized they were black and the moment they realized that was a problem. Can you relate with this statement? Is maybe what you just shared kind of that moment for you?
Well, actually, that's one. Okay, I have a few more,
We'd love to hear them.
but one more significant one while I was at home growing up. I In 1974, I had signed up to come in the military delayed enlistment in February of 1974. And we were, me and a few friends of ours were coming home from playing basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And we cut through a white neighborhood. And immediately walking through the neighborhood to get home, police rolled up on us.
Wow.
And we were told we had broke into mailboxes, we were doing all this and all that. And they took me and a friend of mine downtown. I mean,
Wow.
they threw us up against the car, handcuffed us,
Wow.
took us downtown, but before, since we played basketball, we had to take showers
Mm-hmm.
before they put us in that orange jumpsuit. And they, before I actually went behind bars, my mother had came up there to bail us out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was no proof that we had did what they accused us of. It was racial profiling
Yeah.
at that particular time, being in the wrong place
Yeah.
at that time. And because I was going into the military, they decided to expunge my record, and I went on in the Air Force in June.
Wow.
So this was like March of '74, and in June I left to go in the Air Force.
Wow.
Now, I knew I was African American or black before that particular time. We had to sit in the back of the bus. You know, we had to make sure when we were around whites that we have to conduct ourselves a certain way. All those things that are going on right now,
Right.
they were present 50 plus years ago.
Wow.
So a lot of what we're seeing now and have experienced over the past few weeks, few years, they were doing it then. It just wasn't being recorded.
Yeah.
Okay. And one more, new to the military, got stationed at Eglin Air Force Base, Florida, for Walton Beach. It was a 5-hour drive from there to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We were told when we were traveling on 10, which didn't at that time go all the way over, we had to drop down to Highway 98, which was right on the Gulf Coast. It was better for us to carry a weapon with us if we were African American.
Wow.
As an Air Force member, it was suggested that we have a weapon because of the stops that would be probably conducted, or folks trying to harass us, the Klan or whatever the case may be.
Wow.
And so me and my roommate, we were traveling. He was driving home with me. We were in a part of Mississippi I don't remember. Blue lights came on as he went to pass an individual. Police, they said, okay, you sped up and there's a speeding ticket. You need to pay us $85 for the ticket.
Wow.
Okay. We didn't have credit cards. They wouldn't take it. We had only $70 in cash. They said that's not enough. They took us into the station. My friend was driving at the time. They said, okay, if you don't get the rest of the $15, then we're going to have to put your friend in jail over the weekend. Okay, I went out, didn't know where I was, no GPS at that time,
Wow.
found a Winn-Dixie. I knew that Winn-Dixie did not cash out the state checks because I worked at a Winn-Dixie in Baton Rouge before I left home. Talked to the manager. The manager looked at me. I told him what I needed. He went ahead and cashed the check.
Wow.
I hurried back to the police station, had the $15. The police officer looked at me and said, you know what? We was going to let him go. We were going to let him go with 70.
Yeah.
I said, but you didn't say that to me before I left out to try to find $15.
Mm.
And so we wound up leaving and wound up going to Baton Rouge.
Wow.
There were a few others, but we don't have time for that. But so these things, these police stops, these shootings, these killings, this harassment,
Yeah.
all of this now, it's just come back around.
It's not new.
Because we didn't learn from it. We didn't learn from it, the
Mm.
history. So we're destined to repeat it.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I know you have children. How many children do you have?
We have two adult daughters.
Okay, okay. So,
Mhm.
one thing that I'm just thinking right now, and I know that the conversations of how you prepare your children to go out in public are different when you are African American than white Caucasian, and I wanted to know um, what are some of the conversations you had to have about interactions with the police or just being out in the public that maybe a white family wouldn't have to have?
Well, we considering it was interesting. I come from a family of six boys, but I
Mm,
had daughters, so our conversations were a little different in that respect.
right.
Um, but now women are being killed too.
That's right.
So we've had the conversations when they started driving. Always be attentive to what you're doing. If you stop, make sure you keep your hands on the wheel. Announce any movements that you're going to make if you're going to get your license,
Right.
registration, whatever the case may be. Don't raise your voice. Don't get angry. Don't get into any arguments or discussions because you want to be able to live. And if you have something to contest, you can contest it
Right.
when you're alive, not after you've been hurt or killed,
Yeah.
during a traffic stop. And so thankfully, the times that they have been stopped or whatever for speeding, um, they haven't had any problem. More
That's
often than
great.
not, the police have been helpful. So I'm thankful for that. But I now have a 3-year-old grandson
Mm,
that I'm extremely concerned about.
mm.
We wanted a grandson. All the women had been coming along and wanted a grandson. When we found out he was a boy, we were ecstatic. But immediately the thoughts start coming.
Wow.
It won't be long because they grow up so quickly.
That's right.
And so we are already having that concern for him.
Mm,
And it's a group of us in the neighborhood. I'm a part of a community men's group, and we're kind of shepherding our young men as they come up, interacting in school,
yeah.
in the community, with police and things of that nature. Uh, Matter of fact, I'm working with the police department here. I think I told you that we're getting ready to ask them to go into one of the churches that we're involved with to kind of talk with the young men there
That's great.
concerning traffic stops and things of that nature. And I did that as part of a men's group director uh, in Charleston. We had a police officer come in after Trayvon Martin and discuss
Right.
with our young men how to conduct themselves during traffic stops.
Right. Wow. Wow. So sad that we still live in a country where we have to have these conversations. I'm hope and pray that, as a result of these recent horrible things that have happened, that there are going to be some more conversations like this that are happening that are going to educate people and hopefully stop this horrible evil of racism in America. So my next question for you is: what are the struggles that you face on a consistent basis because of the color of your skin?
Well, I, I guess because of my age now, I guess it doesn't take uh, the things that may have bothered me earlier in life does not bother me as easily
Hmm.
anymore because I understand the state of condition that this country is still in. And so I try to see past the flesh, see
Mm,
past the initial interactions with people. And a lot of time it's just ignorance of who we are, what we meant to this country. Uh,
that's right.
but we get tired of educating,
Yeah.
always uh, trying to present ourselves in a non threatening way.
Yeah.
Always thinking that, uh, regardless of what you may think, people see you a different way. And you have to be always cognizant of that. Uh, Getting on elevators and people clutching their bags or
Mm,
not wanting to get on the elevator with us, walking on the other side of the street so they won't have to walk
Yeah.
near to us. Really, you can see the fear in their eyes from time to time
Wow.
uh, when we have to interact in some uncomfortable position or away from other people. Jogging in the neighborhood now, having to be concerned with accosting someone else, a young lady out there on the street, just like what happened up in New York and
Yes, sir.
the dog park there, and things. So these are the constant things that we face unconsciously every day. I don't stop and think about it every day, but I know that, and my wife and children are concerned that there are times I may walk out this door and may not come home.
Yeah. Wow.
And I've been in the military, been to war, but the most fearful I've ever been is walking these streets in the United States.
Wow. Wow. What a
And that's just a way of life that you never just really become comfortable with. Uh, I just try not to, and thank God for the Spirit of God because He didn't give us the
yes.
spirit of fear,
That's right.
but power, love, and a sound mind. And I keep that in me so I
Amen.
won't walk around fearful each and every day.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So,
The struggle also of doing business,
mhm.
because people assume if you look a certain way, you can't do a certain thing. And that's been a challenge all of my life, even till
Wow.
today. I don't suffer fools easily.
Mhm.
But I just do it a little bit more patiently now.
Yeah.
Uh, and because people look at you and assume a certain thing, they assume you can't pay for a certain thing. They assume that you don't know uh, what the conversations are that may be going on at that particular time.
Yeah.
I've always considered myself well read. My children are that. We're college educated. Uh, we believe in that because uh, that's how you combat a lot of this ignorance.
That's great. That's so
Yeah.
true. That's so true.
Yes.
Oh man, this is really some great information. I think for me to
Mhm.
know and for our viewers to know. What are some practical ways that people like me, white people in general, can be a proponent of change in our environments? Because one thing that I know is that it takes each individual person saying, "Hey, I'm going to be a part of the change. What can I do?" So I want people to walk away with just some practical ways that they can be a proponent of change in their environments.
Well, that's interesting you say that because um, being in the military, it caused me a great comfortability with dealing with folks from every background.
Yeah,
It was just pushed. We were more focused on the mission than not getting along. And
yeah,
we had training. It used to be called social actions when I first came in, and then it became equal opportunity training. So we had training to help us become comfortable with each other in close settings.
hmm,
But living with among each other and having to work among each other, that helped a great deal.
yeah.
Plus, a very simple thing, Chad. Uh, I'm a Toastmaster too. I'm an advanced
Oh
Toastmaster.
wow, that's
So
awesome.
I've done a lot. I mean, I just have.
Yeah,
And so one of the things we learn to quickly break the ice with people is just, hey, put your hand out. Hey, my name is Darrell Grisby. How you
yeah,
doing today?
yeah,
And just something simple as that.
yeah.
See, you are a representative or a member of the majority culture. So it's a lot of things you don't have to be concerned about or think about.
Right.
But if you want to learn about uh, how the other side lives,
Yeah.
okay, do a lot of reading.
Yep.
I'm reading this book now on does that look familiar?
Wow. Wow. That's
You
great.
know, and I read books like that all the time, and by black authors, Jamar Tisney, The Color of Compromise. These are some books that are current
Yeah.
now, that you can help understand better, especially what's going on in the church.
That's right.
The racism, discrimination in the church. So it helps you better understand. But practically, Chad, you're a great guy. Lean in.
Yeah.
Just lean in and say, hey,
Yeah.
you know, just like you reached out to me, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy. And we are willing to talk to you and tell you our stories. Most of us are comfortable with you. With Rice, I live in an integrated neighborhood.
Hmm.
I have white neighbors, Indian neighbors, Latina neighbors, and we just talk to each other. I'm the extrovert. My wife's the introvert.
Yeah.
So I'll talk to anybody. I get to know my neighbors and everything. So when people see that you're not threatening, even though I know that's one of the things that we get tired of having to demonstrate,
Right.
but just human interactions. Just, hey, how you doing today?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yep.
What can I need to know something. Can you help me
Yep.
learn more about this? You start asking very simple questions, and before you know it, you're in a conversation. You may have garnered a friend. Uh, Tensions is released, uh, and if we say we are Christ-like, we exhibit His behavior.
That's right.
And the Scripture even says, if you desire a friend, you must first show yourself friendly.
Right.
And so treat each other as you would want to be treated,
Yeah.
and treat
Yep.
each other as Christ would look at you and me. And I
Yeah.
guarantee you that starts a movement.
Yeah.
And those are some very practical ways as far as I'm concerned.
That is so great, and I know that I'm a huge student to reading all kinds of books on racism, and I'm reading books just lately, just kind of all on that subject because I want to understand. And I was raised in Chicago, so I wasn't raised racist. I don't have that in me, but I want to learn where that comes from and help people understand that we are all humans. And the biggest thing that I've learned throughout my reading is the fact that racism is really it's rooted in two things: in ignorance and fear.
Hmm.
And what I heard you say was, hey, when you see somebody that looks different from you, put your hand out and say, hey, hello, how you doing today?
Yeah.
And that to me is saying, hey, I'm going to get past my fear and I'm going to
Hmm.
put my hand out and say, hey, how you doing? How you doing
That's right.
today? And
That's right.
and then getting past your ignorance, and I'm not calling anybody any names, but ignorance
I
is just
understand.
a
I
is
know
a
you just
lack of information.
right.
Is having conversations like this conversation that I'm having with Mr. Darrell, you can have with your African American neighbors. You can talk with them. I'm sure that they would be glad to have a conversation with you because it all starts with us. It starts within us. We have to say, hey, I'm going to leave behind whatever I was raised in and whatever fear or ignorance that I have, and I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to step outside this thought process that these people are
Yes.
different, and say, hey, how you doing? How can I serve you? What's your name? What are your kids like? And just asking
That's right.
those super super simple questions that can really break down those barriers of fear and ignorance. So, Darrell, do you have anything else you want to share with us today?
Well, I know one of the things that I did. Again, I harken back to my military days because I came in during when Vietnam was ending.
Right.
You know, and I saw protests that went on when they were evacuating Saigon, and the Vietnamese were transferring to the United States. I was in the Air Force at a base in Florida that I made mention of. That was a staging point for refugees coming to the United States from Vietnam. I saw the protests outside the gate, the communities that didn't want to have anything to do with them. And when I retired in '99, I saw the same thing happen in New Jersey with Kosovo when they were bringing the refugees from there. And so I saw the opposition to others.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did not want to live my life in that same mindset. So some of the things that you can do, again, my neighbors, when I got here, I had to open my home up for dinner.
Yeah,
Come on over, bring what you want to bring. If not, that's okay.
that's
And so I
great.
had white neighbors, Latino neighbors, and everything come to the house, and we sat across the table and we talked. We got to know each other,
That's so
and
good.
that's a comfortability. Invite somebody different to your table. Break
Yes,
bread with them and get to know them. And you'll never know when you might meet your neighbor for something.
that's
You'll
right.
never know when someone's watching your house for you to keep, others from intruding and things of that nature, watching out. And ever since then, that's what our neighbors do. And so and get involved with these efforts that are going on right now. I I haven't totally passed the baton to the younger generation, but I see they're out there now marching and
Yeah.
things of that nature. So they have to be brave and bold. My granddaughter, who's 8 years old, just started she led a march in her neighborhood, which is about a mile from here,
Wow.
and now it has gone all over the United States.
That's
The news,
amazing.
the news media picked it up. They had it on their sites here recently, and now a little team of biographers and documentary folk came in
Yeah.
and took video of her, and now they're pushing it out all over the United
That's
States.
amazing.
That's something she decided to do because she saw her G Papa. That's what I'm called.
Yeah.
She saw her. She saw her G Papa cry 2 weeks
Oh,
ago
wow.
with concerning George Floyd.
Mm.
Floyd,
Yes, sir.
and so she took it on and did it, and now it's happening all over the country. Change
Wow.
is afoot, and I've always wanted to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem.
That's right.
Okay.
That's so good. That is so good. Oh wow, 8 years old and leading, an effort to end this racism and bring change and racial reconciliation. Just goes to show you that you're never too young
No.
to be the change you want to see in the world. And wow, that is amazing. I think I want to interview her next week.
Oh,
So
you can. She's got bookings now.
wow,
I'm
wow.
serious.
Well,
I'll send you the link to the video that's out now.
yes, I would love to see that, and I'd love to get to know her because this is part of a string of videos we're doing on what it means
Oh,
to be
we would
African
love to listen.
American, and yeah, so we would love to see that. And so, Darrell, thank you so much for being my special guest today, and you
Yes.
you have blessed me, sir. You have blessed me. We need more Darrell Grisbys in the world for all you've done for our country, for our nation, or for our for the cause of racial reconciliation, and for the cause of the ministry, for the cause of God. I mean, you are, like I said earlier, man, you are goals for me. And so, yeah, I mean, you are
Well,
just
may I ask one question or two?
sure, sure.
How did you know Sandra Bickerstaff?
Yes, 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 sir. So I know Sanja, and I've known her for about 3 or 4 years. And I
Mm-hmm.
just asked her. I said, I really want to get people that are the right fit for these
Mm-hmm.
interviews. And you were the first name that came to mind. And so I reached out to you and sought out your help to do this interview. But she spoke so highly of you, and I actually
Wow.
I actually met her 3 years ago. We were both contractors on a job, and we were just like kindred spirits, man. And we've been great friends ever since. And so as I was, I'm just talking to friends in the African American community and asking, who would be the right fit for these interviews,
Wow.
and you were the first name that came up.
Well, that is awesome. I've known Sonia for well over 10 years now. I believe that she just a wonderful woman of God.
Yes, sir.
And how long have you lived? How long have you lived in Charleston?
I've lived in Charleston for about 15 years.
Okay,
Yes,
all
sir.
right. Well, I I would suggest and recommend, and I think you may be doing this already. Charleston is a very unique place in the United States,
Hmm.
and it's living history.
Yeah.
My dissertation, it was looking at the aftermath of Charleston as far as race relations were concerned after the Emanuel 9 murders.
Right.
And I did a deep dive into the history of Charleston. And if you're there, get to learn every single thing possible
Yeah.
about it. A great friend
Amen.
of mine, my mentor, his daughter is a professor at the Citadel African American Studies.
Wow.
And so if you don't know the history of the Citadel, get to know it. And it's it's it really tells the story of our country in a microcosm, to be
Yeah.
honest, living there in Charleston. So
Wow.
I would advise please take advantage of it because there's more to it than just the tourism and
Yeah.
the market and
Oh, yeah.
everything that it really sets the stage for our country.
Yep. Yeah, I'm so into the history of Charleston, huge history buff, and I'm a firm believer in the fact that to not repeat history, we have to learn from history. And so, but I would love to get my hands on your dissertation that you wrote.
Well, what I'll do is I'll send you a copy of it.
Okay,
Okay. If and what I'll do is I'll send the link to you concerning my granddaughter
that'd be great.
and um, get you my email address, or you can send me your email address, and
Yeah.
I'll send you a copy of the dissertation.
That'd be great. That'd be great. And if any of our viewers want a copy of the dissertation, if you're interested, I would love to, with your permission, I'd love to be able to send that out to some people because I feel like that's going to bless some people. And you have just been a huge blessing today. God bless you, sir. Thank you again for being my special guest. And we will see y'all
Thank
next
you.
week.